Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Wow. Welcome to Learn to Play Ironwood Adventures, or Thornwatch. I'm Mike Selinker. I am surrounded by my truly beloveds here, Mike Failauer, Mike Krahulik, Chad Brown, and the Kiko. We represent. Yeah, you can do that. We are roughly 5/6 of the core team on this particular project. We are missing our dear friend Rodney Thompson, who works for Bungie. I don't know if you've heard of this game called Destiny, but I think they're doing something now. So he can't be here. But we're going to try to do something that we've never done before, which is try to teach 600 people and the rest of the world how to play a game in one shot. So you guys cool with that? Yeah. All right. Well, I would like to quickly turn this over to my friend Mr. Krahulik to tell us a little bit about what Thornwatch and Ironwood Adventures is.
Hey, so I'm Mike. I draw Penny Arcade. Thank you. You've read it? Some of you? All right. When I'm not drawing Penny Arcade, I decided to try and make this role-playing game. And it's set in the Ironwood, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a magical world-spanning forest full of monsters and horrible things that you can't even imagine. And it's also full of people trying to make their life in this magical forest. You've got three main factions that are trying to live in the Ironwood. There are the Lookouts, who are sort of fantasy Boy Scouts is how we describe them. They're trained from very young age to learn how to live in this dangerous place. You have the Daughters of the Ironwood, who are called by the forest to sort of be its, ambassadors is maybe the right word. Its tools. And then you have the Thornwatch, who you will discover who they are through the course of the game, hopefully. But they're sort of like the A-team. If you need help and you know how to call them, they will come.
You can see them on the screen here.
Yes.
You can see that there is a Thornwatch standing proud and majestic in the center, and then a lookout with his badass bandolier or scabbard of badges there, and then the daughter raising hell on the other side there. So that's our crew. That's what the game is about in some sense. It is sort of a hybrid role-playing game / board game, or if you prefer, board game / role-playing game. It's just sort of a new thing that we're trying out, and we're going to show you how to play it. So is that cool? Let's do that. All right. So Ironwood Adventures is a big thing. It is multiple games, at least 3, that focus on those 3 factions. So it's got 1 world, 3 games, 1 system, but 3 ways to play. Think of it as like having a core engine with lots of parts that make it do very different things on the side. So Mike's described what those are, but I'll give you sort of a more general concept here, that there's a forest in the center surrounded by a group of superheroes, a group of kids, and a group of gods. And these people can all interact with each other, and they can all work together, and they can all function together, and we want them all to work in the same game. But that doesn't mean that all the games will have all the same features. Now, this is the money screen. This is what it looks like to us. You can see that there are various parts of the game that feed in from one side or another. You won't find castle building in the Lookouts game. You won't find equipment in the Thornwatch game and things like that. Each of them will have different subsystems that work with each other. But fundamentally in the center, there's some stuff that we're going to talk about in depth today that show, that there's like modular terrain and storyboards and narrative cards and all these things that are built into the center. And you'll see that demonstrated in the Thornwatch expression, but you should be aware that it might have some differences when we get to lookouts and daughters. And, if we have time, we'll talk about that. So, hey, let's learn to play Thornwatch. Here are the basics. We have a game that requires 2 to 6 players. One of them is the judge. They are sort of overseeing the thing. They're not quite a dungeon master in a traditional sense, but they're doing some stuff that represents what the bad guys do and such. And everybody else is the Thornwatch, the A team that Mike talks about. We broke it up over acts. You'll play in various scenes of the game, and there's a mystical call that goes out. Mr. Failhour, you want to talk about knots?
Sure. So the Thornwatch are summoned by the tying of a particular knot around a particular tree, a birch tree. And in the act of tying that knot, always a knot made of thorns, your hands will tend to get pricked, you'll get a little bloody, and by completing this blood ritual, let's be clear, the Thornwatch suddenly, poof, appear. This super appealed to me when Jerry and Mike explained it to me because it just completely eliminates one of the stumbling blocks and impediments, in my opinion, to everyone getting together and playing a game, which is, what's my character's motivation, or I'm not motivated by the money that this guy's offering, I'm a knight, you have to convince me, let's just get to the act, to the game. And that's what this thing does with this A-team concept that Mike's been championing, which is none of that matters. There's a problem, you appear, and you go solve it. Let's play. And that's the knots.
Yep.
There's a map that you're going to play on. Chad, you want to talk about how the table sort of feels during the course of the game?
Sure. The maps are built from sort of large art panels. We sort of divide them up into sections, and we assign them each different kinds of criteria or groups so that you can build them as you go. If you're the judge, you can assemble a map that has a civilization part on the edge, and then there's some swamp and some forest parts. The adventures that we give you will sort of assemble these in certain stories, but you can build your own as you go. And then the structure of the map will sort of determine how each act plays out and how movement works in that particular one. It's still fairly abstract. The map pieces are fairly large, but one of our guiding principles is that what we want is people engaging with each other and looking down at the central map. So that's a beautiful art piece that's assembled and specific to that scene. And then as you go through, you sort of figure out where you want to be, what you want to do, and kind of move around there.
Yep. And so we've given the judge some things to play with, which we'll show you in a second. Some enemies, some terrain cards, this thing called Ebb, which is this crazy forest. What is it?
Yeah, so the Ironwood is full of these creatures, but most of them aren't evil. A monster might attack you just because that's its nature, but that doesn't mean it's evil. Ebb is actually evil. It's sort of like a rot that is infecting the Ironwood, and when it comes in contact with the creatures in the forest or the forest itself, it has pretty drastic effects.
Cool. And then, the general sort of outcome of the game is that if you get through all the acts that the judge puts in front of you, then you will succeed, and if you don't, then you won't. And so, and everybody will return to the forest spirits, and Bob's your uncle. That's the game. So that's a lot of stuff. And I'm going to show you all the stuff that's in the game right now. And we're going to tell you one thing. So we're play testing this game this weekend, and we're hoping that it goes really well, and some of you are going to be in it. If it goes well, I've sort of told the team, we're making this game. That is, we've been spending a lot of time making a whole bunch of different games. We're trying to figure out what the game is, and sometimes it just comes together, and we really feel like we're kind of there, and if it works this weekend, then that's the game we're going to make. So I hope you like it. Because if you walk out of here going, I don't know what the hell Selinker was talking about, we might have a problem. So hey, let's look at all this stuff. So I've used this little metaphor here. You are the little girl putting the knot around the tree. We are the fierce Thornwatch standing over you. But by the end of this, you will be the Thornwatch, and we will,
wow.
we will
What a storyteller.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
feel like I'm there.
You are.
It's amazing.
You're right there. You were there, and you were there. So the Kiko here, by the way, took all this amazing art that Mike created and turned it into the pieces you're going to see, which is an amazing process, and you should thank him for it, because, oh my God. Yeah.
You're very welcome.
So
I mean,
honest.
I told him earlier, what did I say? Something like, I think we're making stuff we're going to keep.
I hope so. It's a lot of work.
Because we weren't really doing that before. We're like, let's make stuff so that we can make it work. But I think we're going to keep this stuff, right?
It looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. Well, you guys tell us, right? You guys tell us if by the end of this you think we're making something that looks pretty good. Okay, got to tell you what a Thornwatch is. Or what a Thornwatch has, I guess. Well, first it's got a token. It's got a little sort of vaguely three-dimensional piece that shows the Thornwatch. Well, Mike, describe it from a comic book point of view, right? Like,
They're just little portraits of each of the characters. For me, it was really important that the game maintain the sort of 2D look of my artwork. And so, doing figures and little minis didn't really make sense. But these are actual little cutouts of the characters that you can use as your tokens.
right, and they sort of fit against the panels that you're going to see, the map tiles that you're going to see, as if they're comic book panels.
Yeah, the idea was that the map would look like a comic book page once you had placed all your tokens on it. So the tokens themselves are very highly detailed, whereas the backgrounds on the map tiles are sort of blurry, and I think it gives the impression of a comic book panel.
Yep. Okay, so here are the Thornwatch. You can be a blade. You can be a guard. You can be a greenheart. You can be a sage. And debuting today, you can be a warden. Now, as you'll notice, I specifically picked that group of 5 because we also have this group of 5. We're going to make sure that you have the ability to play whatever you want. You're not locked into one view of what a green heart should look like, right? But they look pretty good. Mike, you want to run us through what the sort of concepts behind these are?
Yeah, the Warden was the most recent one. Both of them I think of as sort of wild people out in the woods, right? Their armor is fur and leather, and who knows what fur that came from? It has, or what animal it came from. It has spots. The sages are sort of wise wizards that hang out in the woods. The Greenheart is a priest, I guess would be the closest thing. He or she is going to be using the magic of the Ironwood to heal and aid allies, but also deals a lot of damage. The Guard is taking damage for your allies, so this is the tough one, the tank. And the Blade is the sneaky, stab you in the back type character.
But heroically stab
Stabbing you
you in the back.
Stabbing other people in the back.
Yeah.
Chad, tell me about this next thing.
The Playmat. So one of the things we want to do is make this game sort of a pull off the shelf, sit down and play kind of experience. So we're trying to put as much as possible right in front of you so you can sort of get in quickly play. I've been talking with a lot of people about the play test and about judging and about what's involved, and they're like, well, how long does it take to learn? I'm like, well, generally we think we can set people down, and I regularly teach people to play this game in under 10 minutes. And the Playmat is a big help. It's going to tell you what class you're playing, it's going to tell you some basic powers you have, how the turn goes, and it's going to give you a place to play the cards, which Mike will get to in a second. And really, this will get you 90% of the way there. You just follow all these things, you go through, and you're like, oh, what does this mean? Oh, this means this. And play it, go straight through.
Right. This is really all you need to understand to play the game. This page. But that wouldn't be enough to really play it because you'd probably want some cards. And so we'll give you some. Oh, by the way, you can see the point where the work of Rodney and me and Chad stops and the work of Kiko begins.
Yes.
Because these are not final layout. the Braun image specifically.
That hasn't had an art pass done.
But I mean, it's pretty awesome. So
I'm not touching it.
no,
Yeah.
you're not touching it. So these are cards. They represent your powers and skills. And I'll tell you how they work in a minute. But basically, you have a deck of these. How many do you have?
Right now it's 30.
30 cards, and they're different. You'll notice that the decks have different sort of main skills for each. Brawn is a feature of the guard. It's not a feature of the sage, because I mean it's a sage. So you got all that, and then this thing. So this is one of the core engines of the game. I'll show you how it works in a bit. But this is momentum. Everybody has a card, and they give it to the judge, and it will tell that player when they act, and you'll see that in a minute. So that's what the Thornwatch have. If you're a player, you're going to bring that stuff to the table, and you're going to put it in front of a judge who's got some stuff of his or her own.
Can we point out the stark difference between those cards and the cards on the previous page?
Yeah.
Just in terms of visuals.
Let's
Kiko and I make cards that look beautiful.
Let's go back and forth. We make cards that work.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one way to do it, I think.
No, I know. I mean, hey, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
They're basically the same, right? I
they're
mean, they're cards.
basically.
If you squint, yeah.
They're square.
See, I mean, in the Braun case, we didn't even have to do different genders. We
Yeah,
got
yeah.
that. We got that
You're
covered.
done.
Yeah, we're done.
We're all converging though, because over the several variations of that Braun card, every time we remove words.
That's
Like,
true.
so eventually,
That's true. We're getting right toward this. Yeah, we're getting right toward. We're going to put one word on a card, and that's all we're going to give you. This card has more words. So these are judge tiles. The way you build a game now involves taking about 4 of these. They sort of describe what the judge wants to happen over the course of the game. You can mix and match them. So there's no sort of standard adventure for Thornwatch. There's not like we're going to give you one object and you're going to play it start to finish. Now we might tell you to make this really cool story that Jerry and Mike have put together, you need these specific judge tiles and use them in this way with this text, right?
Right.
But you're going to use these components in very different ways. Protect something might be a lookout, or it might be a magic vase, right? Like it could be any of those things, right? So the villain might be very different, but they'll give you some different powers, because in this particular case of the Horde, for example, we want a lot of them. So we have rules that tell you what to do when you want a lot of monsters attacking, regardless of what you want that for. Yeah, so those are the judge tiles. There's some map tiles too. This was a very different approach that we've started I would say, started at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
And Mike has been knocking out these gorgeous, impressionistic.
They're just little paintings for each panel. I want each tile, rather than to just be sort of a grid that you lay down, I want them to be little story ideas almost, so that if you put down a forest or a glade or something, as the judge, you can look at that and go, oh, I've got an idea. I'm going to have my players go to this spot. I want each of them to be really interesting.
And you can see how we've sort of followed through on the comic book motif in some sense, because like there's these little cards that we'll talk about in a second, these terrain cards, and they kind of look like the narrative cards in comic books, right? And the characters are sort of like along the bottom rather than in the middle. Because, when you normally play a game, you'll take your token and you'll put it like right in the middle of whatever it is you're doing. But here you're actually sort of weaving a story, so you want to see that.
Can I talk about that for a second?
Yes, please.
So I didn't actually realize we had this picture, but it's excellent because it lets me talk about the maps just a little bit. It's a little hard to make out the detail, but if you look at those 4 central big square panels, you can see there's sort of a dark shape in the middle. And when Mike originally did this, he did the painting with the trees on the outside and the village in the middle, because that particular story involved a village being surrounded by things in the forest, and you could see the sort of forest around it. And then we're like, well, this is great, but also we can just swap those around, and now you see the tree sort of in the middle, and it gives you a different story from the same panel, the same painting, the same bits. So that's what we were talking about before, about trying to sort of assemble a portrait out of these pieces.
Yeah, so those map panels are actually all individual pieces.
Yeah. I mean, just maybe I should, because I'm used to being around these guys. Your game is going to come painted.
It's going to look very good if I have anything to say.
Right?
about
I mean, like that's not a sentence I get to say very often. Your game is going to be painted for you. That's kind of neat. And speaking of neat-looking things, here we have a couple of the monsters from the Ironwood. Mike, you want to describe what these two things are?
Yeah, we've got the Driven, which are sort of mindless skeletons. They're overgrown and grown through with roots that sort of animate them like puppets. And then the other monster there is a Swamp Choir, which is something that we came up with for the playtest at PAX South. And it's this massive three-headed turtle that lives in swamps. It's got a shell on its back. Four-headed turtle, I'm sorry. And trees and stuff grow out of it. It's really cool.
Shorted it ahead.
It deserves that fourth head.
It deserves that fourth head. You can't really see it. It's hidden in the background. But yeah, and one thing, just file this away. You will note that I've put down 4 cards for the Swamp Choir. You'll see what that means in a second. The judge has a couple other things at his or her discretion. Got some terrain cards. These things will alter what happens. So these beautiful map tiles, they don't have any words on them, right? So, because for God's sake, we're not going to ruin Mike's art by putting...
Tell that to Jerry. 20 years he's been putting words on my art.
It's true. And yet, there is some evidence that works.
Some.
Well, we're not going to do that.
All right,
We're
good.
on your side.
Thank you.
Or we're on his side, right?
Yeah. We're totally putting the words on cards that may or may not be on the art.
Right, okay, yeah, good point. So there's going to be some of these. There's going to be some wound cards. Their job is to hurt people. They're going to look exactly like that. That's final art.
That might be the longest surviving piece of art in the game.
That is, without doubt.
That is still the same image that I used the first time I sat people down at a table and said, I've got this game called Card Warriors I want to show you.
No, I was at your house.
Kiko was in that
Yeah.
playtest.
Yeah?
Like
Yeah,
4.5
well,
years ago or
you've
something.
never made anything finer, as far as
Thank
I'm
you.
concerned.
Well, no, it has no words on it.
It has no words on it. Judge has a few other tools. They have Ebb. This is the first time I've mentioned Ebb's job in this game is to buy stuff. Ebb's job is to give the judge things that hurt everyone else around them. And so the more Ebb the judge gets, the worse it gets for the heroes. And you get to help the judge in that by giving him some Ebb to work with. Lucky you. Judge also has some objective tokens for some things they'll find along the way, you guys will find along the way, and some little special dice. Now these are 10-sided dice. They're not your typical 10-sided dice, except that they do in fact have 10 sides. They just have some check marks on them and swirly symbol for the Ebb. When you roll a check mark, it's good. When you roll an Ebb, it's bad.
It's good for the judge.
Good for the judge. Yeah. Judge is happy. Happy judge is good judge. So, and those are all the tools in the game. There's probably 1 or 2 others I'm forgetting, but fundamentally 4 or 5 others.
No, that's about
Okay.
it.
I think that's about it.
That's about it.
And there's lots of, also, I guess there's lots of paper with like words on it and stuff, but who cares? So, so back to our tree. Let's talk about how you actually play. Chad, why don't you tell us about how this works?
All right, so we've laid out some storyboards, some judge tiles here, and they're going to make up your story as you go through. And there's a few different kinds. The names are still a little bit in flux, and I can't quite read them from here, but there's a sort of description of the knot. Remember, all of our stories start with the Thornwatch being summoned by a mystical knot. And there's several different kinds of knots for several different kinds of problems. And you might only know some kind of these knots, and you get what you use what you have. But the knot is going to give you a little framework for the story. It's going to tell you sort of the setting for it. And it's going to establish some powers and some sort of structure for the thing. I think that's the Pilgrim's knot. We have a Slayer knot. We have the, I'm trying to remember the ones we have. But
Brothers knot,
several
Irish
different
way
knots.
knot.
To the right of it, at least as I'm looking at it now, there's going to be a goal tile. Is that the goal tile or is it the villain tile now?
That's right.
And it's going to tell us a little bit about what's the main objective of this adventure. It's going to say, all right, so we know how we're starting. This is going to be kind of what we're going to do. This is the overall plot. And again, it's going to tell us some things about the story. And because these are mix and match, you sort of assemble the story that you want from these pieces. And then we have,
These are Act 1 and Act 2.
These are the act styles. So these are going to tell us basically for each of our scenes, for each act of our adventure, we're going to start here. And you may not know all these. Like in a typical layout you saw on the map before, there were 3 tiles at the top, and that's a typical layout here. There's going to be more tiles, you know, but you don't necessarily know what they are because you don't necessarily know what Act 2 is when you're still in Act 1.
Right, you don't, you as the players may not have any idea what's coming after that point.
And it's entirely possible for some of these stories you might have a different Act 2 depending on how Act 1 goes, that sort of thing. But it's going to give us a structure, going to give us some powers for the judges, occasionally some powers for the Thornwatch, and again, sort of set a tone in the structure. If you guys have played, you know, Dungeons and Dragons or adventures like that, this is basically the adventure. You're going to have this, you're going to have some monsters, you're going to have some tools, some basic tools like wound cards and tokens and whatnot. But this is going to be the building blocks of your adventure.
Heroes get some cards, as I mentioned before. You will note that they can play them to their card. Those 4 little card frames before, that's where you actually play stuff. You take your card, you put it in a readied position. You take some other cards that have brawn or any of the other woodwise or whatever the other skills are. They power that up, and when, as you can see on the top, it achieves the cost that it takes, you can then use it. Usually that means doing whatever it says. So this one says make a melee attack, and that's against somebody in your square, and roll 3 dice, and then move the target 1 space, and so forth, right? So you're essentially telegraphing your blows. You're saying, I'm going to do this, and the judge is like, oh, well, if you're going to do that, I better prepare for this, and it goes from there.
Yeah, a lot of the attacks will take multiple turns to power up fully, so you're kind of preparing a suite of attacks as the game progresses.
Yep, and you got up to 4 of them, and things can actually ruin those slots. So keep them secret, keep them safe.
For the sake of this presentation, you wouldn't. So for the image, it shows the cards obscuring the text on the playmat. Normally, you would play the cards off the bottom of the page, so it wouldn't obscure that text.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Says the designer.
Yeah.
Yeah, says that.
And to be clear, when you do the PowerPoint,
Do we need to trade seats? I don't know if I want to be here.
so
I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed by mics.
it's
We need
all
a
good.
Rodney
It's
to
all
make
good.
a balance.
It's all good. No, Kiko's exactly right. So, Mr. Failhour, I would like you to lead this next section and talk about this very critical concept called momentum.
Oh yeah. So this is what I would consider the core mechanic. This was a result of some playtesting, because this game has been in development for a while. We're going back to the core thesis of the game of eliminating all the clutter and getting rid of all the impediments to fun and focusing on just the good parts. We decided to take a look at the way, first of all, initiative was tracked, and then second of all, damage. And Mike was actually the key component of this, where we laid out an initiative system, said, hey, why don't we lay out cards, and then when it's your turn, your card turns over, and that way everyone can just look at one place and always know who's next. Hey, that's really great, that'll speed things up. And Mike says, well, why don't we do damage the same way? And so we did, and this is both initiative and damage, and we called it momentum because it changes every single round. So it really puts some time pressure on the players to actually get shit done, focus their fire, and knock down the monsters collaboratively, rather than sort of chipping away at individual buckets of hit points. So in this game, you as a judge or you as the person who's running the game doesn't have to be like, oh wait, which skeleton was that? Was that skeleton 2 or skeleton 3?
Stop
okay,
doing
skeleton
that.
3 minus 3 points. I'll remember that minus 3 points next time. Did you hit skeleton 4? Okay, skeleton 4 is over. That's not in this game.
Yeah.
It also, the reason I like momentum is that if you were to hit the driven, for instance, in this...
Wait, they don't know about damage yet.
Never mind.
You should just hold that.
Okay.
Hold that thought, but really hold it.
I'm holding on to it.
Okay, great. We'll get you there. I promise. So, as you can see, as we continue our journey through the magical world of momentum, when somebody takes a turn, they turn their card to the side, right, and then do whatever it is they're going to do. So, eventually we'll get there. You'll note, by the way, I mentioned this before, some monsters get more than one card. That means they get to go more than once. Swamp Choir has 4 heads. It's pretty scary. The Driven, though, only have 1 card.
Right, even though there could be many of them on the map.
Right, so they're only going to get to go once at one point because they only have 1 opportunity to do so. So we get into a fight. People do what you might expect on a map like this. They move around. They get some actions together. You'll note the Swamp Choir is quite large there. It stands between those 2 squares.
So you could hit him from either one.
Or it can hit you from
Or it can hit you.
Yeah,
It's the other way to look at that.
That's how it looks at it.
Yeah.
And then you can see the terrain cards on there too that sometimes modify things. You roll some dice and so forth. So yeah, now we're going to get into how damage works because I think that's the sort of second killer app in this game.
Yeah, I would say this was the other feature that has been around since the beginning. The wound card and the mechanic itself.
Right. Go ahead.
So when players take damage, the judge is going to deal you a number of wound cards that's equal to however much damage you take. So if you take 3 hits, he's going to give you 3 of these wound cards. And as a player, you're going to put them on top of your deck. You're going to be going to your deck throughout the game, and anytime you go to your deck to draw a card, you must first shuffle any wound cards into it. Now, when you draw a wound card, it sits in your hand, you can't discard it. It sucks, it takes up a place in your hand, obviously. But it also sucks because once you get a certain number of wound cards, you're going to die. And that's, a fail state, I suppose.
Yes. It is, in fact, written into the game as a fail state.
But there are classes in the game like the Greenheart who can heal you, who can actually take wound cards out of your hand, put them in theirs, give them back to the judge, that sort of thing. So that's how damage is tracked for you guys.
Although we should say die is an interesting term, isn't it?
It is. The Thornwatch are ghosts. They are forest spirits that are summoned to aid people in need. So they can't die so much as they can get desynced or sort of messed up and need to be revived.
And this is a game where after you are defeated, after you have taken lethal damage, you can still play. There are things that you can do on your turn that help other people with drawing cards and getting rid of wounds and gaining hero dice and things like that make you an active participant even if you are technically kind of dead.
Re-dead. Double dead.
Re-dead.
Double dead.
Yeah. Okay, now we're getting to the thing that Mike really wanted to talk about. Here's how monsters take damage.
Oh, so we hit the Driven, and they move down a number of spaces in the momentum track equal to the amount of damage they take. So, if they're up at the front and you hit them for 3 or 4, they're going to drop down 3 or 4 spaces. That means a couple things that I think is really interesting. One, it means they're not going to act when they were. You've sort of changed the momentum of the fight. Now you have the momentum, right? And so you've pushed them down. At the end of the momentum track, right now the Swamp Choir is in that last spot. That's what we call the edge. And any monster that takes damage while it's on the edge is knocked out. So the goal of combat in Thornwatch is to push monsters to the edge and then knock them out.
And it changes what you do every round. Like you lay this out anew every round, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this may be our one opportunity to get the Swamp Choir down to 2 heads. We better do that. Oh, this round that looks out of the question. Let's beat on these Driven so they're gone. Things like that, right? It changes what your objectives are in the middle of a fight, which, as far as I know, never really occurs in any other game like this. So I think it's pretty great.
It's my favorite part. It's I'm not a sports guy or whatever, but I have watched a game or two, and it's always interesting to me. And the announcers do this, like, oh, they've got the momentum now, and that really means something. Where a team could be really driving, we'll use football, and they're just marching down the field, and all of a sudden something changes, and maybe it's an interception or whatever. Now it's different, right? Our game models that, where every single round, at the end of that round, all those cards are swept up and then redealt, and now you're in an entirely different situation. I really think that's fun.
Yep.
The other super interesting thing is, as you're pushing these monsters down the momentum track, if you can get them off before they have a chance to act, it's possible that they won't even be able to fight that round. So it's another reason for you to focus
Teamwork.
on monsters and use teamwork.
Plus, we occasionally do things like, say, when a monster is removed from the, is knocked off the edge, it changes into a different monster,
There's all kinds of fun knockout stuff. Yeah.
right? So all sorts of fun things can occur. There's this next step, which is particularly brutal, which is when you fail hard. You give the judge more tools to play with. I mentioned that you use ebb to buy things. You might suddenly get a few more monsters in the middle of your fight because you rolled poorly.
Yeah, if you're rolling the ebb icon and you keep giving the judge these tokens,
Yeah.
you can turn around and spend them on adding new monsters, maybe new terrain effects. You
Yeah.
can really adjust the game on the fly.
Yep. But let's assume you're better than that and you win.
So
Oh, good.
back up just
Sorry,
a second.
yeah.
There's one thing that you didn't show before. This is the other judge's tool. You see that card under that purple thing?
Yeah.
That's a monster.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
the whole thing. That's everything you need to play the monster.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be any more than that. Even the Swamp Choir fits on a card this big, and it will never have a page. It will never have a reference guide.
No,
It might have a really big piece of art.
Yes.
Right?
no bookkeeping.
No
Yeah.
what?
No
it's gonna be great.
bookkeeping.
It's gonna be great. So let's say you win, or let's say you get to the end of that. The act ends. Maybe you win, maybe you don't win. If you don't win, game over. If you do win, then you maybe go on to the next act. And when you win all the acts, then you succeed at the entire. What's a combination of acts? Adventure.
Play?
Play. Yeah.
guess.
Adventure. Adventure is the.
So yeah, and then and you've successfully played a game of Thornwatch, and that's how you play Thornwatch.
Thank you.
It's funny. I was demoing a game of Betrayal at House on the Hill earlier today. By the way, did anybody catch a little announcement we made about that? Anyway, I was demoing that, and I was demoing it to 4 people, and it was harder than demoing this game to 600 people.
Oh,
the
I'm
entire
sure, yeah.
internet.
I mean, since the
Those
beginning,
people weren't as smart as these people.
Yeah, no, that's how it is.
Thornwatch has been about simplifying, I think,
Yeah.
since the very beginning.
Actually, maybe this should be our player ratio. 5 judges to 600 players
Yeah.
at a time.
It's true.
That sounds good. So yeah, that's how that works. What do we do now?
Q&A.
That's how that works. Do we have a microphone?
Oh.
Okay.
Do we have a roaming mic? I can take a. He's got a mic there. Yeah, I got this.
You gotta
You got
open
it?
it.
You got Mike Krahulik, roving reporter.
So go ahead and line up in the middle, and
Yeah, if you
that's
got
what
some
I've been
questions,
told
bring
to do. Let's call this the middle.
And we're gonna whip through these pretty quickly. So
All right. Hey, you ready?
So from the beginning, it was showed that like the story was you were going to have story elements already preset in the box. We were going to have an adventure that we were going to run. Is there yet any plans to facilitate players creating stories and adventures for them to run for their parties?
you think we want to do all the work?
Yeah, I would say absolutely that's going to be a function of the game. I mean, once you've sort of created a set of those storyboards that you like, that you think makes a really fun adventure, there's no reason you couldn't share that online or something like that. Maybe we'll have our own portal for people to do that. I think that would be fun.
I probably skipped over. There's also going to be some written text on each adventure, right? There's going to be like descriptions that you read and stuff like that, and that's where a lot of creativity from the players is going to come.
You talked a little bit about how the lookouts have somewhat different progression. Can you tell a little bit about how the 2 groups will play versus the Thornwatch?
You mean like together or separately?
The advancement.
Sure. To a limited degree, we can answer that question. We expect all the Thornwatch and the Lookouts and the Daughters to be able to play in the same adventure. So the thing about the Daughters is they have these glades, and when they're in their glades, they got all sorts of magic tricks, right? They got pets, they've got sorceries that they can do, all sorts
Jerry
of things.
describes daughters as like predators.
Yeah.
And they have their own area that is theirs in the Ironwood.
Territory.
Territory. Thank you,
yeah.
Kiko.
Right, they're apexes. So if the other players, if you're playing a Thornwatch in a daughter's glade, then it'll be a different experience than playing with a daughter outside her glade, right? Which is fine, awesome. The lookouts tend to travel in packs. There could be 10 of them, and so you might have lots of little non-player characters running around in the background too, and so but a Thornwatch is, well, it's a Thornwatch. It's by itself. It comes to the fight by itself and all that. So everything's going to be a little bit different. The point is that they should all be able to work together, and they should feel right working together.
So quick question about the setup of the momentum. The order at which people are placed, is that random? And a quick follow-up on that, do certain characters or monsters have the ability to, once that order is set, to be like, oh, I can move faster and I'm going to move up too?
So they're randomly distributed each round, right? So
The judge
shuffled up.
picks it up, shuffles it.
And certain monsters have momentum bonuses. They're that quick, right? Because you don't really want them to start on the edge. That's not fun. So they have momentum bonuses that kick them out after the momentum is shuffled. During gameplay, during the fight, there are certain interactions with momentum that monsters have. For example, there might be a leader character where if there's one of his little pack is in front of him, they can't pass him. You have to defeat the leader before the little guys fall. Or the other way around, you've got a gang boss who's just too tough as long as he's got his little guys. You got to wipe out all the little guys, and then he's vulnerable.
Characters
So forth.
also like the Blade. He can put a bunch of dexterity into one of his powers that lets him just always jump up a slot in momentum at the beginning of every round. Right?
Might be a little early to ask this, but are we talking about 3 different releases for all 3 parts?
Yeah.
Kickstarter or retail?
How do we feel about answering questions about that? Well, okay. We're gonna hope this weekend goes really well.
So no.
And if it does go really well, then we'll put it on track to become available through some method.
Wow.
I mean, if you know anything about our company, you've probably figured out how we're going to get it to you, right? But we'll have it hopefully. I don't know. There's a convention called PAX West coming up. We'll see if we can get something together.
That was my question. When can I give you money and get this game?
Yeah, no, you
Hopefully
can't.
soon.
Not yet.
Again, I think Mike is right. If this game that you guys play this weekend works like we hope it does, this is the game that we're going to make.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we will definitely not. We will definitely go to PAX West with serious plans. It will not be. You will not be able to get a box of it there, but you will definitely see it in force there.
Yep.
So is this game meant strictly for single session play, or are there going to be types of advancements that can carry on into further
Chad,
adventures?
do you want to take this one?
Yes, both. Oh, you wanted some detail.
I don't, but
Yeah, so character progression is one of the things that we're still not entirely settled on. We have several ideas. We've been working on several systems. But the idea is that at heart, you can always take this game, pull it off the shelf, set it down with a group of some people have played, some people haven't, or all new people, and have a fun game in 2 hours. Right?
Yeah, and really the only lookouts are concerned with progression.
Right.
yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
That's
they are.
one of the reasons it's more complicated is lookouts are all about building your skill
Collecting your
badges, and working
badges.
together and building up and working on your village and all sorts of things. And then the daughters are about building up their glade and empowering their glade and their various creatures. And lookouts don't lack progression, but they're kind of spirits locked
Thornwatch.
into a certain viewpoint of the world.
The Thornwatch.
I said Thornwatch, sorry.
Yeah, they arrive already badass.
Yeah, they're not.
For them, it's more about finding out who they were, I think,
Right. Yes.
than what they
There
want
will
to
be
become.
there will be develop. Let's call it. There will be character development that takes place over multiple adventures for sure.
Yeah.
Lore question. So if Thornwatch are ghosts, what happens to grown-up lookouts?
I've asked Jerry this before. I go what happens after they grow up?
If only he were here.
Yeah, if only he were here. No, I mean lookouts. lookouts grow up and become, existing members of villages. They protect the roads between towns and that sort of thing. So
Some become masters.
some become masters. Yeah,
What
absolutely.
happens to Boy Scouts? Like, they don't suddenly cease to exist. You know some of them.
Another question about character progression. I went to this panel last year, and there's something about scars and boons, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if that mechanic will make it in exactly as it was in, but it's one we really like and we'd like to preserve in some form.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a question as far as how many pieces it's going to be. Like, I have some board games that have like 1,000 bags, and if I sneeze, I have to pick up everything for 3 hours. And some where it's a couple cards and a piece.
I have an answer for this. Less than Chad wants.
Yeah.
I think
we'll keep it reasonable.
We can promise
I
less,
hate that
less
shit,
than
so-
1,400 cards.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're familiar with Apocrypha, it'll have fewer cards than that.
Hi, I have a question about, I saw the monster card and I didn't get a chance to look at it all, but do we have suggestions for the judge for how they will behave, like opportunists versus ambushers versus
Yeah, all those
You mentioned horrors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
well, many of those are built into the sort of monster mechanics.
Yes.
But also, some of that's gonna come from the storyboards we're talking about. So, like, one of the storyboards Mike had up had on it a power called Apex Predator. That monster is just really good at going first. No matter what monster you put in that place, it's gonna have that feel in the adventure. So it's sort of a combination of those two.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting to know there is no default behavior for monsters. They don't do a thing, right? It has to be spelled out on their card what they do.
So because the daughters are sort of the apex predators in their glades, would there be situations in which they're like fighting against the lookouts or the Thornwatch?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So the job of the lookouts is to protect the villages. The job of the daughters is to protect the forest. And the job of the Thornwatch is to protect whoever needs help. So they're going to butt up against each other all the time. Absolutely. Yeah, get ready.
Yeah, get ready to kill some lookouts, Apex Predator.
Yeah, seriously.
She doesn't have to kill them. She can put them to other good uses.
Right. Everybody needs swine.
So this may be a total noob question I may have missed, but I saw a card on there that dealt with movement. And when you showed the playboard, there was maybe 4 central and then, 8 outer, so 12 total
There's
pieces?
around a dozen tiles on every map. It depends. But
Okay, so is there going to be movement within each of the large 4 tiles or anything like
no.
that? Those are the movement places?
No, those are one.
Tile to tile.
Those
Tile to
are
tile.
one unit. I mean, we could make special tiles where that was the case, but not generally. No.
It was grid based, and I was I was drawing these overhead maps and trying to put grids on top of them, and it really wasn't any fun. And so as soon as we switched to the idea of what if they're just comic book panels that you're sort of looking into and putting your characters on top of, now they're a lot more dynamic, I think.
Yeah, the game started to stall and run into some roadblocks when we were arguing over line of sight rules and flanking, and we're like, this is not right.
I believe
counting squares of movement.
Right. That's where I came in with a meat hook and said, please stop this now.
That's why you brought that in.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
In a game like D&D, the DM generally has tools where they want to challenge the players as much as possible, but if things are going real bad, they can fudge things. So is the intent that the judge tries as hard as they can to kill the players, or are they going to play suboptimally to try to help them out sometimes?
That's a great question. We go back and forth on that a lot. I mean, we think of it as very communal storytelling a lot of the time. And then a lot of the time, we're like, oh, great. Look, you're going to love what I have coming at you now, and you're not going to love it. I don't know the answer to that.
You'll love it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, do you have an answer?
For me, I think that the judge's job is to facilitate the adventure. I think that means a lot of things. I think it means making it exciting, intense. But at some point, yeah, I think that the judge might hold back if they really want people to finish the adventure and get the ending that, is there. So, but I mean, you can run it however you want. You can kill all the players you need to.
One of the things that feeds into that, I'll go just a little bit more, is so you saw the ebb tokens. Ebb accrues over time. So if you're coming in the first act and the players are rolling blanks all the time and having a real hard time, you're going to build up a lot of ebb, and it's up to you whether you want to just throw it all in and kill some people or say, you're going to make it through this, but it's going to get rough later. And then the players have their own choices. They have options and things to do to sort of build up or try to hunker down or whatnot.
In between acts.
In between acts, yeah. So there's a lot of variability there based on how the table wants to play.
Oh, I forgot that part.
Yeah, I like the word choices that you use there. It's up to you what,
Testing.
as the judge, what sort of challenge you want to present to the players. If they're the type of group that really wants it hard, so that when they succeed, it feels real, then throw it at them. You know, if it's like Mike said, you just want to get it over with, or hey, they through role playing or whatever deserve the happy ending. Well, don't spend the ebb. It's up to the judge. And I like that degree of control where the system isn't telling you that there's a certain right or wrong way to play.
We also haven't ruled out judge advancement.
Right.
Yeah.
The judge is a player.
The judge is a player, right?
What do they get?
So what if I just say, oh, thank you for the 7 ebb tokens, I'm putting them in my pocket.
Yeah, I'm investing that.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Hi. There's always a tension in board game design between complexity and making things interesting, making them too hard for people to really pick up. So how did you settle on the level of complexity you're at, and what sets off alarm bells for you as game designers for what's too complex or what's too boring?
That's a good question.
It's a deep question. I'm going to talk a tiny bit about examples there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So when we went to PAX South, we had a system that was, we thought, nicely flowing and smooth and much easier to grasp than the system that you guys might have played at PAX East before. It had 4 ways to play cards. And the feedback we got overwhelmingly from people who really liked the game and had a good time was that they didn't quite get the difference between playing a card on the table and then playing it right away, playing a card on the table and then playing it in the future, playing a card from my hand. And so we said, this isn't really doing it for us. It's not really accomplishing much. So we took it out. And so far, we've been able to maintain a high degree of complexity and fun and player choice and agency, but while taking out all those parts that are getting in the way. One of the tenets that was sort of part of the game when I joined, so I work with Loan Shark, not with Penny Arcade. We work with them, but I don't work for them. And one of the things they told me about this game was, I think you guys have said this, we're looking at all the boring parts of an RPG and we're going to kill them.
Kill them all.
Everything that's boring. So like, we started with great grid maps that were comic book panels. I'm like, that's awesome, but I'm counting squares no matter what. I'm like, well, what if we just turn them into comic book panels and you move from panel to panel? That was great. Everybody we've showed it to has liked it. We used to have armor class effectively. We had a difficulty to hit all the monsters.
Right.
And we rolled dice and we added numbers together. We had static numbers. And it was great and everyone understood it except people were doing math. And we're like, what if you just rolled some dice and they said, you hit once, you hit twice?
The first thing I did for Krahulik was take away his pencil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like he was marking notes on the thing. I basically said, you no longer have this tool. Whatever else you want to play with is fine, but you can't make any notes during the course of the game. And that changed everything, right? It was just like, okay, well, what do you do when you can't record keep? You make a different game.
At South, we didn't have a limit to how many cards a player could play to his tables. So
Also true.
by the time it came to the player's turn, he had like 10 cards looking at it. He doesn't know what to do. So we created the Playmats. Now they have 4. You know where to put them. It made the experience 10 times better.
Playtesting helps a lot with that.
A lot.
That's a thing,
So
by the
thank
way.
you for that.
Yeah, thank you guys.
When and where can we try the game?
Well, when can you try it? Is that what you said?
I don't know where in the con it is. You said.
Oh.
So in the tabletop area, next to Tabletop HQ, we're running play tests. We're running 3 sessions, one today, this evening, one tomorrow afternoon, and one tomorrow night. The signups are probably all full because you had to come to this panel and sign up then. There are some standby slots available. The slots are...
3 and 7.
No.
What?
Oh, sorry. Tomorrow
Tonight
they're 3 and
starts
7.
at 7.
Yeah, tonight's 7, then 3 and 7.
And you can come down and watch even if you're not playing. So.
And Shane did ask me, the person who was in signups did ask me to tell people, if you wanted to play and you really couldn't get in, we'll have a small number of standby slots available. So show up and hope to get in. Unfortunately, that's all we can do with space and time and people and whatnot. But
yeah, we would certainly love to be able to get more people through it, but we have limits.
Certainly come watch, though.
Yeah.
Just a quick question on the cards. You have kind of a deck of cards with villains. You have a deck of cards of goals, and then like a couple of decks of the knots.
Yeah.
An axe. are those supposed to be randomized, or
No.
are they supposed to be?
No, I
there's
mean, they could be.
You can,
There's
and that's
another-
part of the
another-
pull down and play thing.
Right.
Where with Dungeons and Dragons, it's this is my favorite game, by the way, D&D. I'm not bagging on D&D, but with that shitty game, Dungeons and Dragons, it takes a lot of prep
Did
time.
I mention we just released a game for Wizards of the Coast?
I love Wizards of the Coast.
Amazing.
But one of the reasons why we're going so far away from that game is because and might sound like pandering, it is so good already, right?
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever want to
Yeah,
compete with
seriously.
something that's so sublime? So we went in a different direction, and by not requiring prep, right, where you're either reading a published adventure to make sure you get it right and all the story beats accurately, or you're writing your own and filling up your spiral-bound notebooks. God knows I've done that. This is something where, like, oh, friends are coming by for game night, pull down Thornwatch, I'm going to do this knot, this villain, these 2 acts, all right, let's play.
From
And
the very
in
beginning,
3 minutes, you're hitting the table.
Yeah,
my
actually,
idea was you could do it like, hey, should we play Ticket to Ride tonight or Thornwatch? It's that easy of a decision.
It's
right?
actually really cool because these two guys on my left and right are the alpha notebook makers, right? I mean, they're like they make spreadsheets in their games all the time, right?
Doesn't everyone?
Yeah, exactly. And the
Clearly,
fact
at least 50% of this.
yeah,
seriously.
and I have no patience for that. So, but the fact that they actually really like this game now makes me really happy because that's not there, right? You're not going to do that, and it's cool.
Hey, another lore question. So it's cool to see that Thornwatch can be male or female. My question is, if the Lookouts are Boy Scouts, where did the female Thornwatch come from? Is there maybe a 4th faction, or Thornwatch or Lookouts?
So 2 things. Thornwatch aren't lookouts, dead lookouts.
Yeah.
They're just people who have, for whatever reason, passed away in the Ironwood, and now they've become Thornwatch members. Some of them probably were lookouts, but not all of them. And as far as girls being lookouts, there are some. In fact, if you've read the Lookouts graphic novel that's out right, well, I don't want to spoil anything. There are girl lookouts, but it's not a part of the system. Like it's frowned upon, I guess.
And I will say, this was a major point of discussion for us when we took the project. I mean, we don't want to make a game that's just boys or just girls or people who've made gender decisions, right? I mean, we want to make something that's inclusive no matter what. And so,
But there are no boy daughters.
Yeah, well,
that's true.
Yeah. Well,
He hates that.
at least we have 2 years to work on that project.
Yeah. Touching on that slightly, I'm really interested in the world building, and I'm wondering how much fluff and flavor text is incorporated into the game, and will there be more fiction set in this world coming out?
Do you think we're going to let Jerry off the hook?
I was going to say, do you think Jerry will stop?
Yeah, Jerry's on the hook whether or not
There's
we
going to be
let
a
him
lot
off.
of world
That's
building.
why he's not here.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. All right, one more. Do we have time?
And then we'll call it.
Hey, so I was struck by, as I was hearing today, the way you're doing actions now reminds me a ton of that Paint the Line game from a few years ago that you all had, where you had
That
the
guy.
shots stay out and fed the power to them. So I'm wondering, is that intentional? Are there other games that at least 3 of you have designed that you are cribbing ideas from on this or thoughts on that?
I pulled the original design for Thornwatch came from Pokemon, the Pokemon card game.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, so I have a Pokemon that uses water type. Why couldn't that be a Rogue who uses dexterity? That was the whole start of Thornwatch.
And if they have any other games, then we want to steal from those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, at Lone Shark Games, we are ace quality self-stealers. Like every one of our games has something from every one of our other games, so we're going to stick with that. Yeah, I think we just did learn to play Thornwatch. What'd you guys think? Well, come see it. Come see it down in the tabletop area. Those of you on Twitch TV, I don't know, come here somehow. And
Get down here.
Get down here, man. But thank you guys, and we'll see you around the con.
Thank you, guys.